All right, everyone, we have fairly worrying news. Actually, it's close to being breaking news at the moment. Kakhovka Dam in Ukraine, which supplies water to parts of the Crimean Peninsula as well as to their nuclear plant, just to be clear about the severity of this situation, has been at least partially destroyed. It appears to have been breached by explosives. Now, you've got some videos and footage coming out with regards to this. Some is verifiable and some's not verifiable. So some of those videos, it might be a video from 2010 of somewhere halfway across the world that's just had like Ukrainians or Russians or whatever shouting and dubbed over. We've seen instances of that happening. We've definitely seen the recycling of old war footage before that, or non-war footage. Remember that Kentucky shooting range video that was held up by the legacy media briefly some years ago as a footage of a mass shooting? Over in Palestine, actually, if I remember correctly. And it turns out that actually they just forgot to vet the actual video. It was actually years old, and it was from a civilian range where they were firing off a couple of machine guns, actually, at the time. So whenever I see any updates on this that aren't more verifiable, I'll remain skeptical. But long story short, this massive reservoir is now draining. People downriver are now at hazard of losing everything, although when you're in a war zone, your house may have already taken a few shells to begin with, so I wouldn't expect that there's going to be too much left unless they can very quickly repair this dam. And again, it's a wartime war zone, so that might take a while. At least you've got plenty of military equipment in the area that if you need to mobilize it. You know, tanks can haul a lot of bricks and rocks and shit like that, but it still takes some time. The hope is that they plug the leak, I suppose. The hydro dam. Again, this reservoir feeds water to the nuclear plant at, I believe it's pronounced Zaporizhzhia. Or Zaporizhzhia. I don't understand, so I'm not even going to bother trying to correct myself. Everyone will jump down my throat because I can't pronounce words in a foreign language. And the thing that I wanted to analyze here is the blame game. You're already getting it. The dam is still freshly blown, partially or completely. Again, I'm sure there will be further updates throughout the day considering the severity of the situation. But the Russians are blaming terrorists and the Ukrainians are blaming the Russians. Which one is true? I have no clue, because in this particular area, because it feeds water to Crimea, that's been annexed by Russia. You've had attacks on infrastructure connected to Crimea before by Ukrainian forces. There's the plausibility that they'd say, hey, well, Crimea doesn't get water. It'll force the international community to get more directly involved at the nuclear plant, and the hope is that that helps us in our situation. Also, if you did want to have a Reichstag burning moment, it would be right before you're planning a major counteroffensive. So for the Ukrainian side, there is a reason. For the Russian side, there's a reason too, though. Why wouldn't they blow the dam? Just as part of a shock and awe campaign. Oh, well, there goes your hydropower. There goes a lot of drinkable water, including to Crimea, but not just to Crimea. So, we can supply Crimea. The Ukrainians have trouble supplying their people. Maybe they thought that was advantageous. Flooding out Ukrainians downriver, doing regional economic damage. So both sides really kind of do have something both to gain or lose from the dam not being there. We'll have to wait on more. But the fog of war, I would caution people. Before making sweeping declaratory statements of some sort of gnosis about who done it and specifically why, study all the possibilities, because there are a lot of them. What if this was a non-state saboteur? What if it was a goddamn Islamic terrorist? How do we know that it's not? Yeah, it's happening in a war zone, so there are certain parties that are more likely than others to have participated. But they're not the only ones. Look at Nord Stream. We still don't know who blew Nord Stream up. Even odds says that it was the United States. They're the ones that conducted the op. There was a naval training exercise, coincidentally in the same area at the same time, involving joint forces with the United States and I think the Danish at the time, right in the same region, right before it blew. What a coincidence. Meanwhile, Russia took flack for it initially for blowing up their own pipeline when they could always just turn off the spigot, leave the pipeline in place, and use it for negotiating leverage. Never really made sense in the first place. Here, because of the strategic situation with regards to the dam, I have no clue who did it. Zelensky claims, of course, immediately it was Russia. The Russians are deflecting and saying, no, it was Ukrainians, saboteurs or terrorists or something like that, calling it a terrorist attack. Could be. I don't know. I think it's rather sad when people come out and As a result of this, thousands of people will suffer. Hundreds of thousands potentially suffer. And if the nuclear plant runs out of water, well, it's also embattled and in a war zone with a reduced crew performing probably poor maintenance on it, so it's already having some technical issues, and every time a mortar is fired within 5 miles of their nuclear plant, the international energy community goes crazy, Zelensky goes crazy, Putin goes crazy, Biden's crazy anyway. Kamala Harris doesn't go crazy because she doesn't keep up with the news. She's not intelligent enough. Everyone acts like, oh my god, the nuclear plant's going to blow. Someone fired a mortar. The nuclear plant's going to blow. 10 miles away there was a forest fire. The smoke will cause it to blow up. I would think that not having water for the cooling system would probably be a little bit more, yeah, that's actually concerning. I'm not concerned about a couple of mortars. I'm not going to be able to penetrate the walls of a nuke plant anyway. But running out of water, yeah, that would not be a good idea. Look at Fukushima for an example, or Chernobyl. Yeah, you could have a major atomic disaster in the middle of Ukraine, probably quite easily at this point. And people have been warning about that. Another reason why in vulnerable parts of the world, either due to seismic activity or due to the possibility of warfare and revolution, you probably shouldn't build nuclear plants. But nobody really thought about that years ago, and they just started propping them up, usually on shorelines like Fukushima with its, 10-meter high seawall in a massive seismic zone. It made sense. So I'm looking at that. That's, I think, the main international concern with this. I'm assuming that they're going to be able to evacuate people before the downriver regions are fully flooded. That, I think, will take quite some time. But Zelensky is going to be addressing the issue not long from now. In fact, he could be addressing it literally as I'm making this video. Have to have that update later in the live stream. I would just caution people, there is a fog of war now in effect. It enshrouds literally everything with regards to what's going on in that part of the world. You got no clue who blew the dam, unless someone comes forward and claims credit for having done so, or unless you have cell phone footage of what specific device was used and who deployed it and how, which you're probably not going to get. I could be proven wrong on that one. Be nice to know exactly what the fuck happened. Again, it's slightly concerning news to wake up to in the morning, and it takes quite a bit to concern me, actually. You gotta realize, I'm over here in Europe. Depending on the direction of the wind, some of that fallout, if the plant blows, could come in this direction, and I don't need to glow in the dark. I strenuously avoid glowing in the dark, as you all know. I'd rather not start now. I don't think it would help my reputation now, would it? That's about all. Peace out.